Hello, I'm back with Resist 35 profiles of ordinary people who rose up against tyranny and injustice. And today we are talking about Mohandas Gandhi. Okay, so now we're in the early 1900s and we are in another country. We are in India, which is ruled by the British Empire. Gandhi said, "The weak can never forgive. Forgiveness is the attribute of the strong." By the time Gandhi was born, the British Crown had ruled his native land of India for over a decade. Whenever the people of India tried to fight back, the British sent more armies. People perished. Fighting violence with violence had not been successful. Gandhi's mother followed the Hindu religion, and Gandhi himself was influenced by another religion called Jainism, both of which revere self-discipline and non-violence. As a child, Gandhi was shy and not a very good student, but he took his mother's lessons with him when he went to study in London. He thought about her commitment to non-violence when he endured racial attacks. He followed her practice of self-discipline by being a vegetarian in a time and a place when choosing not to eat meat made him an outcast. In his 20s, Gandhi was offered a position as a lawyer in South Africa. He moved there with his wife and his children. In South Africa, the racial attacks continued. When he refused to give up his train seat for a European customer, the white conductor beat him up. Gandhi decided that he would not fight back with his fists, but instead organized the people into a series of non-violent protests. He came up with the idea of a non-violent resistance that he called Satyagraha, which means a, quote, firm loyalty to truth. People often thought about non-violent resistance as being passive, but Gandhi wanted people to understand that Satyagraha did not mean that one was weak or giving in. Rather, those who practiced non-violent resistance could draw upon the strength of truth and justice to face whatever battles lay before them. He wrote, "Truth implies love and firmness, engenders and therefore serves as a synonym for force. I thus began to call the Indian movement Satyagraha, that is to say, the force which is born of truth and love, or nonviolence. I have also called it love force or soul force." End quote. When the South African government, led by General Jan Christian Smuts, announced a new series of laws that would severely impinge on the rights of Indian citizens, Gandhi knew that this was the time for him to try Satyagraha on a larger scale. Beginning in 1906, he led a campaign of civil disobedience. Hundreds of Indians, including Gandhi, were arrested for protesting and spent time in jail. But after 8 long years, they were triumphant. The world took notice of Gandhi's actions, and General Smuts was forced to back down. Satyagraha, truth and firmness, prevailed. He negotiated a compromise with Smuts that included important repeals of the previously passed laws. The South African government would honor Hindu marriages, and Indians would not be charged a discriminatory poll tax, a fee that had to be paid in order to vote. When Gandhi left the country in 1914, Smuts remarked, quote, "The saint has left our shores. I sincerely hope forever." Mohandas Gandhi would go on to use the practice of nonviolent protest in a nearly 30-year resistance in support of Indian independence. On July 18, 1914, 1847, the Indian Independence Act was passed. Gandhi and his people were, after more than 2 centuries of colonialism, finally free. It was not that Gandhi did not get angry. He was human. We all get angry. But as he told his grandson, Arun, anger is not the problem. It's what you choose to do with it that can lead to evil. I am glad to see you can be moved to anger. Anger is good. I get angry all the time, he said. I have learned to use my anger for good. Anger to people is like gas to the automobile. It fuels you to move forward and to get to a better place. Without it, we would not be motivated to rise to the challenge. It is an energy that compels us to define what is just and what is unjust. If he had picked up a gun and tried to match his oppressors bullet for bullet, he would surely have lost. But when the world saw a man using words instead of his fists, they paid attention. When he chose love in the face of so much hate, hearts softened and people were moved. It took a long time, a very long time, for these tactics to shift the tides of oppression that had been swelling for hundreds of years. But Gandhi taught the world that while blind anger and violence can win a battle, love and nonviolence can and will win the war. The lesson here, you don't have to use your fists. Don't have to use your fists. Martin Luther King Jr. Often would refer to Gandhi's Satyagraha, the idea of peaceful protests, when he led his peaceful protests during the civil rights movement of the 1960s. So in your journal today, what I'd like you to do is think about what we know about other people in history, from early explorers throughout the American Revolution, and all the other things that we know about people that we've studied and learned about, activists of today and yesterday, and think about times when people or a person or a group of people chose not to use violence as a way to protest. I can think of one that even we decided to do together as a group, when we decided to take on a particular cause together as a school. Can you think of other people or a group of people who have done what Gandhi has asked people to do, which is protest for sure. Stand up to people, stand up for democracy, stand up for equality, but do it in a peaceful way and not a violent way. Can you think of those people and write a little bit about that? Write about who you're thinking of, what did they do, and how did that make you feel? Are they an inspiration for you? Do they inspire you to do things like that yourself, to speak up and to use your voice to make change? So that's what I'd like you to do today. All right, so I'll see you next time, and with Emiliano Zapata. Zapata. Great name. Okay, till next time. Bye.